Auditioning. Thug number one, thug number two.
For slaves.
Prostitute.
There's always the hustle.
Literate basketball players.
Mary had a little lamb. The thug.
The only narrative that they understand of black life is drug addict, drug dealer, gang member.
I was the hottest black actor in the world after Boys and I. There were people clamoring to work with this young sensation as long as he did the roles they wanted him to do, which were street kids.
I had been in this thing that is a masterpiece of American cinema, and nobody gave a shit. They really didn't give a fuck.
I auditioned for my first pimp part. My mother's all proud. You know, be the best pimp you can be. The whole church is praying for me.
Let's pray that Brother Robert gets the role of Silky Good Dick. The film is called Holes on the Stroll. It sounds like a musical.
And then that's when the filmmaker was born. I said, man, we can't let Hollywood tell our stories. We have to tell our own stories. They'll make us do anything and everything. And these images travel around the world.
They had a perception of us that ultimately is false.
Good morning to all my brothers, especially my fellow veterans across the board. Salute to you guys. Much love to A-Game Nation and all my subscribers, both new and old. Hit the notification bell for future videos. And it is 9:56 in the a.m. I want to say what's good with everybody. And today's video is all lights are not created equal. Now, this is something I want to give to my brothers out here, both in the military theater and the civilian theater. Into the new year. Understand the power, the potency, and the necessity of your masculine light. And this is what I mean. When it comes to number one, you're spiritual, knowing who you are, what you're about, and why you're here. That is paramount above all else. If you do not understand that, number one priority within yourself, everything else will go to shit. Literally. Oh, and viewer discretion is advised. A little late, but hey. Now, when it comes down to it with your light, all lights are not created equal for this reason. See, there are some people in life who are built for the spotlight. When they're under that spotlight, they know how to perform. They know how to do their thing. They were built for it. They will kick ass and take names, and they give you a performance of a lifetime, depending on what they're doing and where they're at. And that's a great thing. As I've always said, you always learn how to run your race. People like myself and those similar to my mindset is we understand that there's more power behind the spotlight than underneath it. It's more befitting to us. Everybody isn't meant to see everything that we do, nor do we make it a point to spotlight everything we do. It's just part of who we are. I love to see my brothers rise, mature, and be celebrated in doing their thing. We're not super predators. We're not these pieces of shit that the media and other people and these bald, edgeless oracles and all these people who wish to defame, shame, and blame us for everything. What you're seeing now is a lot of people going off the rails because the shame, blame, and explain train has long been derailed, and they have no other means of creating content. What they're trying to do is not just create conflict, but they're conflicted in the ideas of not just creativity, but credibility. That's what's making What's helping them make their rounds, not just in this space, but in general. People have to create a lot of bullshit in order to get that attention, that shine, that light. They fiend for it like fucking junkies need that next fix. But see, when you are attuned to your masculine light, you're going to shine in your own way. You're going to do your thing without having to be complaining about who's doing what, who's getting theirs. You're running your own race. You conserve a lot more energy. You save yourself a lot more stress and headaches, worrying about what you got going on. What they got going on maybe might be meant for them. And if you think about it, using your intuition, your foresight, if you really assess everything they're doing and what they have, do you really want to do the same things they did to go get that shit? See, that's the thing about your masculine light, as I've always highlighted. It's not just being able to use it to shine the way forward. Leading by example, because great leaders create great leaders. But you start assessing yourself, maturing with you see every L as a lesson, not a lesion to sit there and pick at and get more infected by. Now, if you're not careful, you can actually dim your light. And this leads to a chemical that I've coined personally, and what you see in people with low light. Testogen. You might have heard it before, but I'm explaining it again. And remember, you have to spell it with a small t and a big E. It's a noun, an unstable mix of male and female chemicals that leads to pseudo-masculine antics, hyperaggression, and all manner of heightened bitch assness, i.e., emotional outbursts. Another noun, uncharacteristically childish tantrums and or antics expressed by the masculine deficient. Now, we've seen this all in life. Some of us have been guilty of exercising these things. When people don't get their way, you got people kicking over shit, doing silly shit, embarrassing themselves in a goofy manner. I admit, I got out of pocket in public, and I was embarrassed about it more than not just doing that uncharacteristically, because of how it made myself and my peers look. That's what really fucked with me personally. So when you use your masculine light and you own up to the things you've done, you take responsibility for it. That's where you shine. That's where the manhood steps up. You know what? I was out of pocket. I was foul, blah, blah, blah. You make your apology, make your amends. If they don't accept it, cool, keep it pushing. And this is like another thing that's deficient, not just in the space, but in many places in life in general. De-escalation of force. This isn't limited to police and law enforcement, but de-escalation is a behavior that is intended to prevent escalation of conflicts. It may also refer to approaches in conflict resolution, which is sorely lacking in many areas, especially in this space. People may have committed to behaviors that tend to escalate. Now, granted, as men, we're not going to agree on everything. What we should aspire to achieve is agency. That way, we can fully express ourselves, be heard. Now, some people don't need to be fucking heard. We heard enough of their bullshit. But in general, we're talking about legitimate complaints and pushing towards sound solution instead of using our masculine light to illuminate the furnished caves or echo chambers, which we call panel possums, or whatever have you, to where nothing gets resolved. All you hear is nonstop bitching and circular arguments ad infinitum. As men, We're supposed to use our light properly. We talk about the 4 P's. When it comes to provision, we could provide ideas, supplies, food, finances, clothing, housing, etc. But if done poorly, we will provide shelter to help obscure the foul shadows and the bullshit that people harbor within themselves when they stand within proximity of us. This is the whole thing about guilty by association. There are many times over we try to see the greatness in people that they don't see in themselves, or we're guilty of trying to project greatness into these floating pieces of shit in our orbit. We have to see things as they are and move accordingly. Some people are not meant for our light. Some people are not meant to be grandfathered into greatness. Then we talk about problem solving. Going into 2022, things are changing. It's a whole new world that's evolving and right from our very eyes. And we got to learn how to adjust and adapt and overcome, because we are supposed to oppose environment. This is where we start saving time, minimalizing energy, waste of energy, money, etc. This is where we find order. We make order out of chaos. We set things straight and into a system of calm and peace, because peace of mind ain't free. However, if we use our light poorly, you will nest in the nonsense. You will waste your time and energy on promoting excuses. Matter of fact, you'll be a junkie using that bullshit as a needle to remain stuck and strung out on them problems. There are many things that we have been through as men. Some things you got to cut off. Certain bridges you got to burn. Even if you have to get the personal effects of things of that problem, whether it be an ex or whatever, put it in a box, douse it with gasoline, dig a hole and burn that shit and bury it. Whatever the fuck you have to do in a masculine fashion, do it and be done with it. That leads to protection. When it comes to your masculine light, you have to have your head literally on a fucking swivel. Now, what you cannot see visually, you have to use your intuition and your foresight as prevention. Gain all the knowledge and information you can. So when we talk about protection, we talk about shielding from harm by confronting danger, but also in the form of the very structure he creates or provides that covers his physical absence or in a hostile environment. This includes rules and guidelines he sets. We're talking about your masculine light, which you have to have principles and standards. Learn how to use no. If it is a waste of your time, it's a waste of your time, and stand on it. This goes into people if you allow your light to be dimmed. This is where people will nest around you. And they'll no longer become your boys. They'll become the barnacle on your balls. They don't serve you no good. Now, when it comes down to the last P, we're talking about procreation. We're talking about physical intimacy ranging from affectionate touches and words to sexual intercourse. Any and all expressions of love, care, and support. The creation and raising of his children, legacy with his values, and the culture of his household. Now, we're talking about your masculine life. We're talking about brotherhood. Now, do understand, not only women are limited to using sign language. Dudes are notorious nowadays for using sign language. Shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right. There are too many fucking places that we can point out this happens, and people thrive and monetize mediocrity because of this shit. However, in using your light correctly, you will instill hope, humility, Now, that's a foreign language in many areas of the space, but it does exist. It takes a masculine man to become humble with his shit. He doesn't show everything because, matter of fact, it takes a wise man to be humble most times. Now, it doesn't. Now, every now and then, you have to flex. Sometimes you have to drop your nuts out there. Hey, man, I'm doing my thing. But I say that maybe 2% of the time, at best. Humility helps, and it heals. Then we talk about onus. Owning your shit. Not playing accountability dodgeball. Not kicking the can, which we see as a sport in the space and beyond. But as a leader, when you're wrong, own up to it. As a corporal, am I lone weak in doing that? That's a whole nother story. When I made my mistakes, I gathered my troops around me and let them know, hey, I fucked up here, here, here. This is where I'm going to correct this. Hopefully you learn from this. Again, great leaders create great leaders. Never be afraid to fail, but always be afraid to own up to your mistakes, or not being willing to stand up when you fall down. Now, here's another one that is very lacking in this space in many other places. Praise. It's one thing, and it's a masculine thing, to give other men their respective props when they've earned them. It's a bitch ass thing to do to use them as props, to hide behind, or use them as punching bags, or disposable pawns, which is even worse if you allow yourself to succumb to that position. See, the thing is, when you give them, when you give them praise, and that's something that encourages people to do things better. There's a fine line between praise and punishment. If they screwed up, of course you're going to get your ass chewed. But the thing is, like, look, you still owe it to them to be an effective leader. As I've always said, an effective leader and an educated lame cannot exist in the same time or space, cannot occupy the same time or space effectively. So now, in doing so, we're talking about correction. You use your light not to sit there and spotlight a person's failures. You shine the light to opportunities to become better, to better represent themselves and the unit. That way you don't leave your soldiers behind. Rugged individualism has become one of the many banes of us all. And that's what allows these predators to pick us off like fruit. And the last thing is empathy. So it's one thing to say, oh man, that's bad or whatnot. That's fucked up. As you've seen what happened to Force Windu and Renegade 1. Rest in peace to him. And rest in peace to David Carroll. But you notice when you have empathy, you put yourself in that fellow brother's shoes. You see what they're going through. It's already enough they get shit on by life in general, people that they once upheld and praised and looked up to. But when you lend your hand to a fellow brother in a genuine fashion, that means something. Now, some might be afraid because they've been fucked over so many times that they get defensive, and you cannot hold that against them because in this gynocratic society, that's what they're accustomed to. But there is no shame in being a solid, forward-thinking brother. The one who worries about his own, being his brother's keeper, being a legit curse breaker, looking beyond himself because he sees himself within that guy, knowing he's possibly a paycheck or two away from his position. Some brothers who are listening to me right now is probably listening to McDonald's Wi-Fi or whatever means of communication that he basically has. and he's looking for answers. Not just for myself, but from other brothers who aspire to see greatness within those who look like them. So when you use your masculine light correctly, you start learning how to separate who from this person, from that person. Do they add something to your life? Or do they add bullshit to it? Do they subtract, divide, or multiply positive and negative things into your life? Now you have to keep a side eye to the neutrals because, again, they can go either way. And using your foresight, you start seeing who's around you. See, like in the solar system, there is a bit of balance in there, but then you get further out, you start seeing who's positioned where. So you got the star screams of the world, the alienated followers, the cynical bastards. You got the passive followers, the sheep, they'll just go along to get along. Even worse, the yes men, the conformist followers. Or you'll have those pragmatic followers who are just the wild cards out there. So when you're an effective leader, you have exemplary followers because you instill greatness within them via your example and what you give into them. But when you don't, when you don't have that, you might have a case of flaccid fellowship. It's a noun. The inability to sustain nor produce impactful life, nor leadership into your circles. The leading cause of organic relationships. Now, granted, you've seen people around that you believe are popular, but have you noticed certain people flake the fuck off? They don't always tend to keep the same networks around. And then you start paying attention, using your foresight and your intuition. How they move is fucked up. How they talk to people is back-asswards. In general, they promote themselves to be bigger than they really are. But see, again, I've always said, if your actions, words, and intent don't work in concert, you full of shit. And again, when it comes to relationships, shit and ships, they both float. But shit was meant to break up after a short period. It's meant to decompose. Ships were built to weather storms and the elements and to carry heavy loads effectively. If you're suffering from flaccid fellowship, that's because your light is dim. Or you feel comfortable surrounded by dim-witted motherfuckers. People you view less than. People who don't view themselves in a proper light because they've been accustomed to operating in a low light. See, when you around brothers, you want to encourage them to be the best version of themselves. It goes aside from working on their physical selves, working on their mental health, repairing their families, fixing their appearance, their dwelling. That way, collectively, interpersonally, you start working on your mobility and all the other things pertaining to 10 life values. But again, if you suffer from flaccid fellowship, it will show by your associations. You'll notice people who used to hang with you heavy, who were once loyal to you. You start realizing that person was only loyal to you because they affixed what they saw in themselves or what they wanted to see in you manifest. And it never came to fruition. That's when their faith wanes. That's when they start slowly drifting off. That's when you start seeing people either give you the Dirk Nowitzki fade or the immediate middle finger. See, the thing is, it isn't always haters that always generate it. Sometimes people don't operate well or grow in the absence of actually in the presence of low light, your energy is off. All you're giving off is bad radiation, bitch nigga vibes, things of that nature. In closing, I want to say to you guys, there is no shame in being a solid man of purpose and principles. In spite of what this society tends to say about men who carry themselves as such, fuck what they're talking about. Stand on your square. Start the new year off right, establishing yourself as a better man, walking in your purpose, walking with your back straight, taking pride in who you are, what you're about, and what you will be doing. There'll be some people who temporarily outrank you, who will eventually learn how to respect you. Not just how you carry yourself, but because of how you move, people above them will tend to speak well of you and tend to promote you into a position that you were meant to be in. All you got to do is be consistent. All you got to do is pursue your purpose patiently. You will get there in due season. That don't mean it'll be a blue falcon, a shitbird, Sergeant Suck Dick. None of that. Stand in the core of your light. Do never be ashamed of the brilliance of your light, because you were designed to shine that way. All you have to do is get yourself into the right position and do your motherfucking thing. Who gives a fuck about how they feel about it? When it's your time, redeem your time. And don't worry about seeking approval or validation from people who can't fucking stand you. That shouldn't even be in your, it shouldn't even be on your agenda. Who cares what they think? They're going to be there. That's a given. Just understand that these ungrateful motherfuckers do need your light. For the same shade that they cast on you, that's because they're stealing your energy and your light, and don't have the motherfucking courtesy to fucking say thank you for shining on me. Let this be a lesson to people who take loyal people for granted. You start feeling that cold chill of their absence. So with that, I hope you guys take that for what it is. If you feel motivated about what I said, you let me know. Aside from the language I always tend to give, it's whatever. And salute to you guys for supporting the channel. And I want you guys to continue to be great. Take your time with your steps. Improve yourself. Read an audiobook every day or a book every day. At least a chapter or two. Try to eat better. At least get an hour of sun. Get out there and walk. Stretch your legs. Do something different. Do what you can to feed your light. That way you can shine as bright as you need to. Because you never know, someone might be depending on the brilliance of what's within you. You'd be surprised of how powerful your light is when it shines on the right people, both foreign and domestic. You also have to protect your light from the same people too. So with that, you guys be careful. Much love to you. And never allow your comfort zone to become your coffin. Peace.